We begin here in Turkey, where rising inflation and growing strains with overseas allies are spooking investors away from the local currency. The Turkish Lira touched a record low of 3.97 against the US dollar early on Tuesday. Mobin Nasir has more.
Foreign exchange dealers in Istanbul are paying fewer dollars for local currency these days. The Turkish Lira fell to a new low of 3.97 against the US currency early on Tuesday. Although it's recovered slightly since then, analysts see plenty of reasons for the Lira to stay under pressure.
Actually, we deem the recent movements in the currency as, the movements inconsistent with the macro dynamics. There are some factors. Let me give you, for example, examples. The first one is Turkey's relations with Europe and US actually, and uncertainties regarding to Reza Zarrab case. And these are the actually main source of volatilities. And the other thing is recently elevated central bank and interest rate tension.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has repeatedly called on the central bank to keep interest rates low and make it easier for people and businesses to get loans.
I believe that interest rates are the cause and inflation is the result. It pushes up prices of everything. Sooner or later, those who do not understand this point will realize that high interest rates can also cause inflation.
But inflation is on the rise, reaching nearly 12% in October, prompting some lenders to shift their wealth in search of higher returns. Meanwhile, US interest rates are expected to rise in coming months, making North America a lucrative destination for these funds. And that's one of the reasons the Turkish Lira has lost around 16% against the US dollar in the past 2 months. Strained relations between Ankara and its NATO allies are also bearing down on investors, and analysts don't expect a quick resolution.
It seems that the ongoing tension will continue for a while, and that will definitely keep Lira highly volatile in the short run. And in the medium run, we will look at the comments from central bank's possible actions, and mainly the political developments.
Turkey's central bank has not raised interest rates since May, but it's making short-term borrowing harder for banks.
Borrowing limits for commercial banks for overnight transactions have been reduced to zero from the 22nd of November.
While that's likely to have a similar effect as an interest rate hike, many believe it's not enough to tame rising prices. But Turkish Minister for Customs and Trade Bülent Tüfekçi is calling for calm and says the exchange rate will soon stabilize. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Joining me now is Taha Arvas. He's the financial columnist at the Daily Sabah newspaper. Welcome to Money Talks as ever.
Thank you.
Taha, great to have you. Taha, what do you attribute the weakness in the Lira to?
I think there are a lot of factors. One of the factors that we need to point out is there has been a general dollar strength momentum going on. In the last 2 months, the Japanese yen is down 10% against the US dollar. The Canadian dollar is down over 10% against the US dollar. The South African rand, which most correlates to, the Turkish lira, is down 7%. So a lot of currencies, the euro, et cetera, are all down against the dollar. Turkey has what's called a higher beta, which means it's more affected by economic moves. So when the economy is better for emerging markets, Turkey moves faster upwards, and then when it's worse, it goes down faster. So that coupled with higher oil prices, these are the highest oil prices we've seen in the last 2 years, and Turkey is an importer of oil, of gasoline. So when that happens, these coupled together lead to a devaluation in the currency that we've seen. It's not a devaluation, but a small increase.
Right. So in response to the fall that we saw today, the central bank has made a couple of small moves. But explain to us in a little bit more detail what exactly they're trying to do here.
The central bank is doing a few things. It has, this is one of the most proactive central banks in modern Turkish history. They have a lot of tools in their tool belt, and this new central bank has come at a time where there are a lot of changes globally. The current Fed chairman is changing. The United States has this new overhaul of the tax policies that it's considering. There are multiple different economic swings all over the world. And so the latest move was in an effort to shore up the Turkish lira a little bit without hurting lending in general. So it's just another move that the central bank did to help the general Turkish economy.
Nonetheless, they are holding the benchmark rate steady. President Erdogan says that raising interest rates would make it much harder to control inflation, which kind of goes against traditional orthodoxy. But explain his rationale for saying that.
I think the point that he's making is since 2008, since the Great Recession, the world has changed drastically. In the past, we were taught, economics 101, if you increase interest rates, then inflation goes down, and similarly the opposite. But what's happened is interest rates are nearly at zero or less than zero in most of the developed world. In the European Union, they're at negative rates. In Japan, they've been close to zero for over 20 years. But inflation has not increased at all in those areas. So the worst enemy of any economist is stagflation. So if we have lack of inflation or, God forbid, deflation, that means people will not spend money on anything, and they'll wait because their money gets more valuable. So what's happened is President Erdogan argues that increasing interest rates will increase inflation. That's called a neo-Fisherian theory. It's something that's been floated the last couple of years by many Fed officials, and it's been embraced by a lot of people around the world. It might be true. In Turkey, we're seeing the math shows that inflation has increased as interest rates increased. Causation doesn't necessarily mean correlation. Correlation doesn't mean causation, but we're not sure. Time will tell what is the correct method or what is the correct interpretation.
Taha Arvas, Daily Sabah, thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you.